On the morning of November 15th, 2025, inside BYD's Zhengzhou mega factory, the one proudly advertised as capable of churning out 1 million vehicles a year, a dull, heavy boom echoed across the site. 3 seconds later, hundreds of tons of steel structure crashed down, burying 3 workers alive on the spot. Local media, total silence, not a single line of reporting, not one photo, not even a flicker on the trending lists for a single second. Then, less than 48 hours later, another disaster. At 11:16 a.m. on November 17th, the ceiling of a brand new 5 billion yuan shopping mall in Xi'an came crashing down directly onto shoppers, just 3 days after its lavish grand opening. The entire country reeled and asked the same chilling question. Why are China's vaunted speed miracle projects now killing people in rapid succession? A muffled explosion suddenly rang out at the expansion site of BYD's super factory in the Zhengzhou Airport Economic Zone. Moments later, an enormous steel frame collapsed. At Phase 5 of Project DK5 in the New Energy Components Industrial Park, a structural collapse had claimed 3 lives. This tragic event, which occurred 2 days earlier, was only acknowledged when the Henan Provincial Department of Housing and Urban Rural Development quietly posted a brief notice on November 17th. Local forums, public WeChat accounts, everything went dead silent. The incident never made it onto any hot search list, yet this was no ordinary construction site. It was the beating heart of a factory designed to produce 1 million cars annually. People asked, how could such a tragedy happen? The answer came almost in unison. China's notorious infrastructure frenzy. To meet impossible deadlines, contractors treat human lives as negotiable. Supervision companies pocket huge fees while turning a blind eye to blatant violations. General contractors subcontract layer after layer, each tier shaving off profit. By the time the work reaches the actual laborers, there's not even enough money left to buy a proper safety net. Just 17 months earlier, the same BYD Zhengzhou plant had completed land clearing, piling, and erected a gigantic factory complex, a project that would take 3 to 4 years elsewhere. Local officials proudly dubbed it Henan Speed. But behind the glory lies a dark alliance of money and political power. For Zhengzhou, BYD was the economic lifeline. Attracting a 70 billion yuan, roughly 989 billion project, became the top political priority of the entire airport economic zone. Every green light was switched on at full power. Planning, environmental approvals, construction permits were all traveled on a special fast track. When that much money is on the table, who dares say no? Safety was pushed aside, quality inspections became formality, fire safety acceptance reduced to meaningless check marks. Netizens could no longer contain their rage. Shoddy construction is no longer the exception in China, it has become the standard. Under the twin pressures of capital and political performance, human life has become the cheapest consumable with the lowest cost. And the most biting comment of all, BYD ranks number 1 in the world at making cars, and apparently also number 1 at digging graves. Less than 48 hours later, at exactly 11:16 a.m. on November 17th, 2025, another ceiling panel came crashing down again, shocking the nation. This time it was the 3rd-floor escalator area of the newly opened Longfor Changgol Tianjie Mall in Xi'an. Roughly 30 square meters of gypsum board and steel framing plummeted onto shoppers below. Viral videos showed thick dust, debris flying everywhere, screams of terror. Many were struck on the head and body. A middle-aged woman clutched her shoulder in agony on the floor. Just 3 days earlier, on November 14th, the same mall had been draped in celebratory banners. 99% leased, 98% of stores opened on day 1, proudly marketed as Northwest China's first transit-oriented commercial complex with total investment exceeding 5 billion yuan, about $723 million. Longfor Group had boldly declared it would reshape the commercial map of northern Xi'an. Yet 3 days later, part of that new era literally fell on ordinary citizens' heads. Official reports recorded only 8 injuries, 3 with fractures. But fear cannot be quantified. Regular families, some with small children in tow, simply riding an escalator when the ceiling collapsed on them. Netizens immediately pointed fingers. Insane rush to finish, substandard materials, perfunctory supervision, virtually non-existent safety checks. One construction worker wrote, "This is not a random accident. This is the inevitable outcome of the race to the bottom in the construction industry." He explained that contractors now routinely bid 10 to 20% below real cost just to win projects. Developers save money, but the price is an endless chain of subcontractors, cheap labor, fake materials, and zero quality. What we're seeing, he concluded, is only the tip of the iceberg. In 2025 alone, China has already witnessed a string of similar tragedies. Structural collapse at BYD Zhengzhou plant, 3 dead. Pedestrian bridge collapse inside Hefei shopping mall, 5 injured. Exterior wall panels peeling off an office tower in Changsha. Tower crane collapse on September 1st in Chengdu's Chenghua district, 5 workers killed. All are symptoms of the same disease, a system that places speed, GDP targets, and political achievements above everything else. Supervision firms are paid by the very contractors they are supposed to oversee. In 2023, China's Ministry of Emergency Management randomly inspected 500 projects and found 412 had completely falsified supervision logs. Even nationally critical infrastructure is not spared. In November 2025, investigative reporters discovered that numerous bridges on the Yimba branch of the Yinchuan-Baotou Expressway used bridge-bearing pads so poor they could be torn by hand. Lab tests showed tensile strength of just 1.78 MPa, only 15% of the required 12 MPa, and the wrong type of rubber entirely. Workers on site whispered, "This stuff will rot in one winter." A retired railway engineer warned that at 300 kilometers per hour train speeds, a single fatigue crack or failed seal could shave decades off a bridge's lifespan. After 2 decades of frenzied infrastructure building, China boasts the world's longest high-speed rail network, the most highways, the fastest-built factories. But the blood price is becoming impossible to hide when an official's career is measured only by ribbon-cutting ceremonies, not safety records. When supervisors are on the contractor's payroll, when China's speed is cheered while workers fall. These collapses are no longer accidents. They are inevitable, systemic, man-made consequences of a development model that has long treated human life as expendable. 2 collapses just 48 hours apart are not a string of unfortunate incidents. They are the death sentence that China's own growth model has written for itself. When a nation grows accustomed to treating human lives as extra line items in the national ledger, the deaths in Zhengzhou and Xi'an cease to be tragedies and they become overdue invoices. What is more terrifying than the physical collapse is the collapse of public trust. Chinese citizens are no longer asking, "Why did this happen?" They are asking, "How many more people have to die before you finally stop?" That question is colder than any pile of broken concrete. In 20 years, China proved to the world it could build 40 kilometers of high-speed rail in the time other countries build a single metro line. November 2025 proves the opposite. At that same velocity, China can also turn its entire infrastructure stock into the planet's largest ticking time bomb. No one knows how big the final explosion will be, only that the timer is running above the heads of 1.4 billion people. The real damage is not 3 deaths and 8 injuries. The real damage is that from now on, every time hundreds of millions of Chinese citizens will automatically look up at ceilings in newly opened malls, glance nervously at railings on new bridges, and wonder about the foundations beneath their feet. That invisible fear is the heaviest price. A society that no longer believes in the very projects it once took greatest pride in. BYD, Longfor, and every other corporate giant are merely the visible part. The submerged part is an entire state apparatus that has turned speed into a national religion, ribbon cutting into a sacred ritual, and human lives into sacrificial offerings. When party cadres advance based on square footage of factory space, when provincial secretaries sign billion-dollar deals sealed with workers' blood, the word accident no longer applies. Only the word sacrifice. History will remember the 2020s not as the decade China overtook America in EV production, but as the decade a great civilization turned itself into the victim of its own limitless ambition. The boom on November 15, 2025, was not the sound of falling steel. It was the sound of the myth of an invincible China shattering into pieces. And once a myth shatters, it can never be reassembled. Will Beijing dare to slam the brakes on this deadly race? Or will it keep accelerating until the entire country becomes one giant pile of rubble labeled Chinese Dream? The answer is coming soon, and it will not be measured in GDP points, but in how many people are still alive beneath the next miracle projects. Thank you for watching Secret China. If thoughtful, no-agenda journalism matters to you, we'd love for you to subscribe, share your views down below, and be part of the conversation. Catch you next time. Stay aware and take care.